thehannibaltv.com, here with the beautiful and lovely Angelina Love.
No pun intended.
No pun intended at all. And we're at the Rhode Island Comic Con. She's, of course, a multiple-time Impact Wrestling Knockouts champion and one of the beautiful people with Velvet Sky, who we spoke to earlier. So any highlights? Obviously, you're a multiple-time Knockouts champion. Any highlights from your time in Impact?
Oh, God. I have a lot of highlights. I would love to say the first time I won the Knockouts title was a highlight, but I was completely unconscious when I won the title, so I don't remember. But
why was that?
I got a concussion live on pay-per-view. So that it was Lockdown 2009 in Philly. Sorry, it was in Philly. And it was a cage match. It was me, Taylor Wilde, and Kong. And I think Kong was the champ at the time. And right towards the end of the match, Taylor Wilde did a crossbody off the top and landed on my brains on the mat. So, and then I was just like, we were supposed to go into this whole intricate sequence for the finish, and it was just like Kong was tied to the cage and I was unconscious, and Taylor Wilde was like, all right, we're live on pay-per-view, what do I do? So, but I did end up winning, but it wasn't quite what we had planned. But yeah, I mean, obviously highlights, beautiful people. I mean, we got to do a very history-making character gimmick, which we're still doing 10 years later, so we're pretty happy about that.
That's one thing I always find interesting about people that say that wrestling's fake, whereas like in MMA, if you were knocked out, the match would end, but in wrestling, you'd be expected to continue the match right until the end. If you had your leg broken, try your best to go on for another few minutes.
Well, that's why you have to learn how to ad-lib. That's why people who think it's fake, it's like, just the thing where everybody says get in the ring and try it. It's pretty true, because you can't just walk in and be like, I'm a wrestler. It's impossible. You have to know how to, if somebody, gets a concussion and they're completely unconscious on the mat live on pay-per-view, you got to know how to work around that, and that takes a real pro.
And everyone knows, of course, about your time in Impact Wrestling, but a lot of people aren't familiar with your WWE development work. And we recently did a shoot interview with Nova, who used to be head of WWE development talent, and he told us a story that he actually cried when he had to release you because I guess they had just asked you to move.
I lived in Louisville for a week. Yeah, I've known Nova since I was 19. Williams, he calls me Williams. I don't know if he said that too, but he always calls me Williams. Yeah, and I had been in Deep South. I was the only girl in Deep South from the day the doors open until the day the doors shut. And then I went to Louisville and I did one training class, one show, one tape review, and then I got released that night. And I thought he was joking because there was at one point in Deep South where I was actually being brought up to TV for something, and he called me like he was firing me, and it was this big joke and whatever. So when he did it this time, I was like, ha ha ha, and he was like, no. It took him all day. He called me at 7 or 7:30 p.m., but he knew at 9 a.m. that day that I was getting released, and it took him because he's known me since I was a kid, so it took him all day to do that, and I was like, you're kidding, right? I'm supposed to go to TV on Tuesday. This was Thursday night. The following Tuesday, I was supposed to go to TV. I thought he was joking, and he was like, listen to the tone of my voice. Do I sound like I'm joking? And I was like, oh my God, what? I was only in Louisville for a week. So my parents had actually driven from Toronto 11 hours down to Louisville to help me get everything set up, because as soon as I got there, I had to go work. So they pretty much got my entire apartment set up for me, laundry, and got cable set up, and my mom food in the fridge and everything, my room put together, my living room put together. We had to give everything back because I only had stuff for 2 days, and I just lost money on delivery fees and a deposit on an apartment. And when Nova had called me, my parents had called me 30 minutes prior to say that they had just crossed the border back into Canada. They had driven 8 hours. And I was like, I just got fired. And my mom was like, what? And then she was like, do you want to come home? And I said, get me out of here. My parents stopped on a dime, turned around, crossed the border again, and drove 8 hours back to Louisville, and got to my place I don't know, so 6 in the morning, and then we all napped for a little bit, and then started the process of leaving the next day. I've rock star parents, by the way.
I guess seeing the way that the divas have grown now, I don't even think they're called divas anymore, and the women's division is so huge that.
Divas? Okay.
I stopped watching about 10 years ago, so yeah, maybe the show's called Total Divas.
The show's called Total Divas.
But probably if you had been in the business maybe 10 years later with all the opportunities, you probably would have had a different story, obviously.
Oh yeah, I mean, gosh, there's so much more opportunity now. But you know what? The way that I look at it is, if I had have gone forward with WWE at that time, we would have never done The Beautiful People. And The Beautiful People was 150% totally meant to happen, because that is what gave us fame. That is what made us what we are. So I'm totally grateful for that.
And you're still wrestling. You were just telling me off camera. You're making wrestling appearances. Where can people book you for that, and autograph appearances?
Yeah, we have an email, bookthebeautifulpeople@gmail, and then my personal one is alovebookings@gmail.com.
Is Lacey Von Erich still wrestling?
Did she ever really wrestle? I love you, Lacey. No. She's like a mom of 3 in California. No. She's living life. She's good.
So you're the last woman standing then of The Beautiful People, I guess.
Well, Madison still wrestles.
She could be a tag team. Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's with Ring of Honor. She has a show. Actually, they have an ROH show today.
Interesting. So they could book you guys as a tag team, maybe with Velvet managing.
Yeah, I just wrestled Madison 2 weeks ago in Nashville.
And I've seen you wrestling for House of Hardcore off and on everywhere too.
Love Tommy Dreamer, the man that gave me my career.
And if people want to follow you on social media?
Yeah, Facebook's private, sorry. Twitter, @actualalove. Instagram, alove4life222.
Well, thank you for talking to us, and you still look like you're in top shape, so keep up the good work in the ring.
My son, chase my son around all day.
Anything final you want to say to the fans to close this off?
Oh, just always love you and thank you for your support. I've been wrestling for 18 years, and it's unbelievable that, people are still loving and supportive, and I appreciate it more than you know.